our WhatsApp group. We invite Professor Haripam to share his expertise. He belongs to University of Rostock, Department of Maritime System. Yeah, is that correct, Professor?
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's agriculture, actually, our Faculty of Agriculture, but I'm Department of Aquaculture.
All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Without further ado, it is Professor Haripam. The screen is yours, Professor.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, thank you very much, all of you, for inviting me for this lecture series. Actually, when you were asking me to present this lecture series to you, actually, I appreciate this very much because, you know, I have been in Indonesia. I started my activities in 1998. So it's now about 24 years that I'm working and cooperating in Indonesia, giving lectures and working with several universities. Actually, I'm working with. I have been working with UNSUD, as you know, within the SPICE program. I have been working with IPB. I am a guest lecturer at Udayana University at the moment. And I also have good contacts to the universities in Makassar. So actually, these are the four areas of interest. And therefore, when you came with your question to present lectures and work together, actually, I appreciated this because it's a long time ago that I went to UNSUD, indeed. So this lecture series actually was developed also in Indonesia. So it is possible that one of you or at least some of my older students must have heard already this lecture. But on the other hand, I'm teaching this lecture series also to my master students at the moment, because it is very important also for our master students to publish, because publication is a preposition of successful grant applications. Perhaps you agree to me because a lot of you guys are already lecturers. I see docent as status in the participants in all of your names, behind all of your names, actually. So you are not non-experienced. All of you already have tried to apply for projects, tried to publish papers, successful or not. Some of you only published, I guess, in national journals. And I know that the policy in Indonesia is, of course, to have more outreach in international journals and in the easy journals. So to reach the high-ranking journals. And actually, this is still difficult, not only for you guys, but also for German students and German lecturers. Not everybody is a talented writer. So when we started, or I started to develop this lecture series, I was thinking about the possibility to get a kind of a scheme, a kind of a model paper writing that people can learn to self-correct their own writing attempts. And this is actually what we will talk about in the next weeks. I will present you a method how to understand a scientific paper a little bit beyond your intentional writing. You know, because all of us somehow have learned to write scientific papers intentionally. So nobody, I believe nobody really taught you to write scientific papers. It's more that, okay, write an introduction, then you write an introduction, you send it to a colleague makes some corrections, but nobody really explains you why you are doing this. And you see, and at the end of the day, there is a kind of a joint effort, how your publication looks like. And it's a kind of a joint feeling, what you then later really submit to the journal. So I have a question to you now. Is this kind of a description a kind of reality in your life? Or is it more sophisticated? Who can answer this to me? So how is it? Is it a kind of a description of reality or not?
Some, yes.
Yes, it
Yeah.
is. Yeah, for some.
I think it's a bit, because I think this is typical. It's also very common here. And the problem is, you know, before you then submit these manuscripts, and also before you submit your research proposals to the grant agencies, it's just a guess, and you don't really have a feeling whether the quality is really high. And of course, you then are seeking for some people giving you advice, but it's very difficult really to control yourself what you are doing. So therefore, what we are learning now in this, I have this on this first slide. We want to talk a little bit about this principle. I want to talk a little bit with you about this basic and applied research issue, because I will explain you that a scientific paper, actually, to write a scientific paper starts quite earlier. It starts already with your decision in which kind of research activities you will be involved. So depending on your research proposal, you already decide a little bit in which direction later your possibilities to publish will be. So we will talk a little bit about this, and then we will talk about the structure and why we are writing, because also there is an intention behind the writing process. And this intention is much more than just publish a paper because our dean expects this, or the university policy is now to do it, you know?
Yeah.
And you see, of course, and you get some more points for jumping up more in your hierarchy. Yeah, this point collection. Actually, I did this point collection at IPB too. And before I left IPB, I had reached about 1,000 points. So that equalized me, I think, to get a professor status at some times in the Indonesian system. And so you see, collecting these points is, of course, an incentive, but it's not the reason why we are trying to publish.
Right.
And then we will go into the articles. And I have now these 3 papers that you gave me. So we will take one by one and we talk a little bit, and we will try to improve these manuscripts a bit, and we will go into the texts so that you have a practice experience and you learn a bit more the concept, what I am understanding under scientific publications. Perhaps as an explanation, of course, you can say now, well, Harry, Mr. Harry, well, we are also experienced writers. And are you sharing screen now or not yet? You can see my screen?
No?
I think you can see my screen, right?
Not yet.
Not
yet.
yet, sure.
What?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Please share your
Oh,
screen
wait.
then.
You cannot see. Okay, wait a minute. That's, okay. I see. I don't know why. I don't know why.
Can you close it and, okay. It starts sharing now.
Now you see it.
Yes, yes, we can see it.
Yes.
Now you see it.
Yeah, we can see it very clearly.
Okay, good. Oh, sorry. Yeah, okay. So, so we will talk about this basic and applied research. We will talk then about the general structure and the purpose of this scientific paper writing, and we will talk about the working hypothesis, and we will go through an article to explain you more how you can control your writing activities by yourself. And then at the end of this lecture, we will turn over to scientific proposals. Because actually the research paper writing, what you are doing there is actually a similar thing that what you would do when you are trying to write a research proposal. And I think during this lecture, you can also tell me if you are interested to address a certain funding agency, so that we can look into their structures of the proposals that they want to get. And then we can also talk about this, how to apply while writing a research proposal. Okay, so if we talk about science, because this is also an interesting aspect, you are all professionals, so you are not beginners. But if I ask you now what you understand under science, because we have all a master of science, of course. But what does it mean to be a scientist, and what is science? Who can just in one sentence tell me what science is and what a scientist does? Is anybody among you who can tell this to me? Don't be too shy, because we are here in a working group.
Aris.
So who can explain me what is science? Who can in one sentence just tell me what science is?
Unmute, Pak Aris. Pak Aris, unmute, please.
Sorry. Yeah. Okay, Prof. I think science is something about our experience every day that can be useful for us and make sense.
Experiences that we get
every day, every time.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And objective.
Yeah. Okay, another one.
Yeah.
No, another person.
Okay, thank you.
Pak Aris, I think it's important that everybody just is a bit involved. So and don't be shy because of your colleagues. You see, the more we talk about these things, the better we learn.
May I try? Excuse me?
Yeah.
Okay, I will add what Pak Aris say. This is collections of knowledge that is organized systematically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Systematically. Okay. Who else? I want to have 5 different ones.
Silakan.
Saya Pak Romi.
Ya, silakan Bu Aulid.
Okay. I think that science is doing research. So if we can translate one sentence for science is research, I think, yeah, that's enough.
So to do research, yeah?
Yeah.
Research activities. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay.
Maybe Pak Romi can help us in translating into Bahasa Indonesia, and our friends, colleagues will explain it, give an answer in Indonesia.
Yes.
Is that
Okay,
okay,
everyone
Prof?
can speak in Bahasa.
Yeah.
I think Professor also will know about Bahasa, right?
Not really.
Bu Alice, Pak Hussein, ya.
Barangkali Bu Beta atau Bu Atin itu.
Oh ya,
Bu Berta.
Bu Berta.
Okay, I'll try. I think science is knowledge about the natural world that is based on fact.
Okay. Yeah.
I just add maybe like a
One
proven
more.
knowledge. Yang lainnya, satu lagi.
Satu lagi.
May I add some more?
Ya. Oh,
Yeah.
Pak, lagi.
Yeah. It is explanations of the relationship between cause and effect. Yeah, it must explain the relationship between cause and effect of a phenomenon, of natural phenomenon. Yeah.
Causes and effects of a phenomenon. Okay.
Is that enough, Prof? Or we
Yes,
have
that's
some?
enough. That's enough. Can you see this?
No.
No. Okay.
On the way.
Freigabe.
Yeah, we can see that.
Now you can see, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right. So the interesting, behind this is all of us, and actually your answers are normal, yeah? So this is just regular answers. That experience that we get every day. This is my autocorrection every day. So these are just regular answers, and this is normal because we all have a Master of Science, also myself, but we never really thought about what this profession is. So, for example, if we have a Master of Construction or we have a Master of Architect, for example, we would expect that these guys are able to make a construction and build a house. So we have a kind of a connection to a product these people are delivering through their work. But we as scientists, if we are in natural science, if we are in a faculty of fisheries, we achieve a Master of Science, but we not really think about what is the real product that we get and what is the product that we have. As a brief explanation, so at the moment, a professor, for example, in the US, his earning is about $100,000 a year, yeah? Something like that. And that means there is somebody giving these people $100,000, so $6,000 or $7,000 or $8,000 per month. And now, if you think about for what these people are giving the person the money, it is not really about the collection of knowledge. Or if I would personally ask you, would you give somebody $100,000 for the collection of knowledge? In whatever direction and whatever reason? Or you would give somebody $100,000 just for doing research activities, because research activities is a kind of data collection, it's a kind of sampling, but you wouldn't give so much money to a person if his work is not underlying certain criteria. And the most important criteria of all of it is to produce data. Yeah. So actually now you see there's a kind of a product that people are expecting from you. So you can produce data, but these data, they must be reproducible. So the criterion of your data is that they are reproducible, so that any other person on this world at a given time in a certain region can recollect these data in the same way like you did. You understand? This is the criterion. And to produce these reproducible data by using an adequate methodology. So here, suddenly, with such a definition, you can have a fisheries biologist. Yeah, a fisheries biologist will produce data on fishes, fish stocks, by using an adequate methodology, and these data that he gets can be taken in the same way by another fisheries biologist if he is applying the same methodology. So that means actually you are earning your money and you have your position, yeah, as a scientist, because your work underlies certain criteria and you are able to fulfill these criteria. Yeah, this is science actually. So science is a kind, it's a job. Yeah, it's a job profile, that what we call. And people that get this job are able to fulfill something like this. So the next point is, who decides what data are an adequate methodology? Who decides on that? Who can help me with this? Who is deciding what is an adequate methodology?
Scientific community, I think.
Exactly. Absolute correct. Yes. So scientific community and that means what you have to do, you have to communicate these reproducible data, yeah, communicate the data to the, you see the correction, to the scientific community. So I think this is absolutely essential that you understand that your job as a scientist indeed requires communication of the data you have collected to the scientific community. And if you do not communicate this, and if you do not communicate, the point is the scientific community does not know what you have been doing.
Yeah.
They do not know what methodology you used. And therefore, they cannot criticize, they cannot support, they cannot discuss your scientific data. And that means you are not really fulfilling the job as a scientist. A constructor, you know, at the end of the day, you will have a building. And you see the building and you can see, okay, these bricks are in the right order and the doors in the right place. So you can directly criticize the constructor and say, look, I told you you should have done this in a different way. So please do it again. But in the scientific community, if we do not communicate, we cannot discuss and we cannot quarrel together with our colleagues about what would be the best solution and where will be the best option. Because another interesting is this one, you said science is knowledge about the natural world. And that's true. But the interesting thing is the knowledge about the natural world is changing every day. So every day there are about 2,000, or every year, I think there are 2,000 publications only about nematodes. Not about fish, but about nematodes, worms, free living and parasitic, but 2,000 papers every year. Nobody can read the 2,000 papers. And that means we have a constantly changing view on the natural world. So we must communicate our data, discuss them with the community, that we can change the knowledge and we can develop new strategies and new ideas and new methodologies to approach reality. Because we are not able to really see the reality. We are only approaching reality with our methodologies. We are developing working hypotheses. We answer these working hypotheses and develop a new hypothesis to approach reality in nature. So therefore, this explanation for you is only made to explain you how important scientific papers and scientific publication is. And that means if we are talking about science, we have to understand that it's an ongoing process that is never stopping. And a scientific paper, you know, we are living in the age of Google. So when you have a student, you know, and the student want to write an introduction, you tell him, okay, you write an introduction. And if you need literature, Google. Yeah. So you Google and you take these keywords and you look into the literature and you use them and you cite them, you know. But the point is, also in 1950, and in 1930, there have been scientists, and Google perhaps does not know these papers. Yeah, but the papers are still valid. And that is very important for you to understand. A paper never loses validity because a paper is always connected to the age, to the date when it has been published. And of course, in 1930, there were different methods than we would apply in 2020. But still, in the paper, it's written it was 1930. So the data and the results and, you know, the research and the methods, it's still valid to today and it still can be used today. You cannot, what can I say? You cannot forget this research only because it's old. And the other interesting aspect behind this is That means whenever you publish an own paper,
Ya, soalnya di kita itu diktinya yang bagian penilaian jurnal.
Dimatiin dulu itu. Suara. Sorry.
is there a problem?
Interference with the microphone. Would you please
Oh.
mute? Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead, Prof. Sorry.
Is this better now?
Yes, right.
Yes. Okay. And so that means when you are writing your paper, you should always know that what you are writing is written forever. Because, and what you are publishing your reproducible data, and you are publishing your research, of course. But the importance is, if you have published it, it will never go away. Like a manuscript from 1930, your data will be always there in the scientific community. So when you are publishing rubbish, when you are using a bad writing style, when you know the editor and he helps you to publish because you are looking for some points and credits for your university, but you are publishing a bad introduction and a bad discussion or wrong data, you must know that this information nowadays and also in earlier times is not going away. So you are losing reputation, perhaps not today, but perhaps in 5 years or in 10 years, when you are reading what you have been written today. So therefore, a scientific paper and a research proposal is only a way to get to a scientific paper at a later stage. Yeah. A scientific paper for you is your product. And it also shows the quality of your work. And it enables you to discuss your work with other scientists to improve yourself. So a paper is much more than just writing it up because the dean or the university or anybody is asking you for this. And also to decide, okay, let's read it again before I submit it, or I give it to another colleague for another check, you know? It helps you to improve your quality. It is not that the people just criticize you, but all these steps are helping you to improve, that the quality of your paper is better. And this is important for your own sake. I think this is the most important you must understand. And this has to do with your profession, because this actually is your product. It's a measurable output of the scientist. It's a paper. And the paper is public domain. That's what we call it. It belongs to everybody. After it has been published, your data belong to the public. So that means the public has a view to that what you have been doing. And the validity never goes away. So 10 years later, you cannot say, okay, well, it was 10 years ago and my paper was in a bad quality. You understand? This is no excuse. It's no excuse. And that means, for example, my first paper I have written in 1992. Yeah? So this is now 30 years ago. But what I've written in this paper, I can still cite today. Of course, there was different methodologies, yeah? Of course, there was different knowledge around. We had different books. We had different other papers to cite from, and we also had less knowledge 30 years ago. But the quality of the paper, the hypothesis and the methods that we applied at that time, you know, in that time, it was the adequate methodology. And what we figured out with this methodology 30 years ago is still valid today. If we would apply the same methodology today, 30 years later, in the same place, you know, we would get the same results. And this is the importance of the scientific paper. And therefore is it so important to understand the style of and the structure of these papers to improve yourself and to write the best papers that you can write, because this is actually a part of searching for the truth, you know? You are searching as a scientist to understand the world as you have written it, but we can only approach it with our methodologies. We cannot reach it. No? We cannot reach the truth, but we are searching for the truth. So we are marine scientists. And of course, you know, this is a very nice paper, this is a nice picture. I made this photograph in Enoshima in Japan. There's a very big aquarium. And you can see in this aquarium, you have all predators, the highest predator. We have sharks, we have rays, we have pelagic schooling fish, we have other predatory schooling fish in this picture. So actually this picture is the whole food web, the marine food web. And if you see, for example, the food web is connected, you know, that's what we as scientists want to learn. In marine science, basically, we want to learn what this system is all about, who is connected with whom, and how these connections and how these energy flows and pathways are. Yeah. And it's fascinating for us. That's why we have done this in the first place, right? That's why we have studied what we have studied. And the interesting thing is, if you now look into a scientific manuscript, you will see the same thing. We will have always, whatever journal you look at, whatever international journal, easy journal, you will always have a certain structure. We will always have a title. We always have an introduction. We have material and methods, we have a working hypothesis, we have results. So at the end of the day, also a scientific paper is a kind of like a living body, you know, where all these different parts are interconnected. And the better you know about the interconnections, the better and easier you can write. I have a question. Is what I'm talking to you, you know, is it understandable? Is it logic? Is it clear?
Yes.
I think so.
Yeah. And I hope that it also brings you a kind of my perspective, how I see the world, the scientific world. And perhaps it can give you some new ideas and some insights. So today, you know, I think I have written about 150 scientific papers in international journals, something like that. And it's about 150. It's 10 per year or 15 per year at the moment. And you cannot do that. Yeah, you cannot do this if you do not understand how this has to be written. Because otherwise it's all too time consuming. So you have to understand what are the different components of the paper, and then you have to have a process, how you do it and how you self-control yourself. And that's what we are learning in the next sessions. Also, when we are together in our lecture, we will talk about this one. Okay, So the second thing, I have still 15 minutes because you now have to understand a bit the scientific paper. This is only the output. But to get the scientific paper, you need a proposal, because with the proposal, you earn the money. So the money, yeah, flows only if you have a good research proposal. And if you have the money, then you can collect data. These should be reproducible, and then you can publish. This is our process. So that means it is very important for you that you have the output in your view, but now you have to think about, how do I get this output as easy as possible? Again, to spare time, to be efficient. And there's one important thing that you always have to consider before you are starting to write a scientific proposal. You have to think about what are in your research topics that you can use. We call it basic research. And what are the topics for the applied research? So who can tell me what is the difference in your understanding between basic and applied research? Is anybody among you?
Yes, may I try to
Yeah.
answer your question?
Yes.
The difference between basic research and applied research can be recognized by the product. The basic research normally produce more information or new theory or proving hypothesis, but the applied research produce something that are based on the basic research, and it can be used to be applied. For example, to be used in the industry or to be used in the other advances research.
That's a very nice way to define this. Thank you very much. Indeed, the basic research is something with certain criteria, and I have now here these criteria. So the basic research produces data, reproducible data, but these data and the research questions are open. So that means we have to have a working hypothesis. And this working hypothesis can be relevant for the industry or not. It can be relevant for somebody else or not. Yeah. So, for example, I once met a physician. He was working in physics, and I asked this guy to explain me what he was doing. Yeah, because I was biologist, he was a physician, so we were standing on one desk and we were talking together, and I wanted to make a kind of small talk, talking to this guy. So I asked him, hey, what are you doing here? Why you are here on this meeting? And he said, well, I'm a physician, and I'm doing also research, basic research, he told me. And I said, well, I'm not a physician, and I'm not good in physics, but perhaps you can tell me in easy words what you are doing. And then he said to me, well, in easy words, yes, okay, I can explain you. My research is about, I am trying to prove that in nothing there is something. Can you understand what he said? I'm trying to prove that in nothing there is something. That was his research. And you can see that, of course, this is basic research. Yeah.
Okay.
It's basic research because it's so far away from anything what could be applied, but it is of so much importance if we want to understand the world and the truth. You understand?
Yeah.
This is basic research. And of course, at the end of his research, he will publish this, his data, what he did. And it will be public domain. Everybody can criticize it. It's a search for the truth. And of course, he can apply new methods, but he will always be criticized and it will always be public domain. And this is the basic criteria for basic research. And of course, it will help him to generate reputation, to win the Nobel Prize, or, you know, to be recognized as a very good researcher. On the other hand, we have the applied research, and you can see here it's very different. It has very different outlets. You write a report normally, and it's not reviewed. You have no peer review. It's not reviewed. It goes to the guys that have given you the money. And actually, it's also owned by the sponsors. So the data you are producing here, yeah, they don't belong to you and they don't belong to public domain. If you want to publish it, actually, you must ask the sponsors. You cannot just go and publish it, at least not in Germany. Yeah? So you need approval if you want to publish it and if you want to get criticized by your colleagues. And actually, it's always a search for an answer. It's not a working hypothesis what you are looking for. It's just an answer. Is Jakarta Bay polluted or not? Okay? It's not a hypothesis. It's a question. Is it polluted or not? And you see, if you, for example, if DKP is offering a project proposal to be submitted about Jakarta Bay, yeah, you are submitting something and you will say, look, I will work in Jakarta Bay because you want to know whether it's polluted or not. And then you will write in your proposal, to do this, I will look into ecotoxicology, into parasitology, into fisheries biology. I will apply these methods because the methods are new, they are adequate, and they are the correct methods to use. But at the end of the day, it's not a working hypothesis that you are looking for. You are looking for an answer. Yeah? And here you have a very, very big difference. And if the government doesn't want that you publish the data, because your result is that Jakarta Bay is heavily polluted, yeah, you know the Spice book, yeah, about Jakarta Bay and pollution. If actually the government doesn't want that you publish it, you are not allowed to. You have been using the adequate methods, but at the end of the day, all this is to generate income. It is not to generate reputation, and it's not really on the scientific research side. So this you have to understand, that there is a real difference between basic and applied research. And when you now start to think about your profession as a scientist, and you want to have an outcome at the end of it, which should be, of course, a publication. No? This should be your outcome. This is what you want. Here you want to go for. But if you do not have the money, you must, of course, write a research proposal. And I always call this that a publication starts much earlier before you are writing it. The publication already starts when you are writing your research proposal. When you are applying to get money, then you already, in your research proposal, you have to distinguish between those parts that are for applied research, and you have to distinguish those parts that are for basic research. And you should have both components always included in any research proposal that you are submitting. Because if you do not consider this, you will collect a lot of data. But these data, at the end of the day, you cannot publish in international easy journals. Because right from the beginning, you did not consider the right data set to be collected for a good and nice and sound publication at the end of the process. And so I always call this shifting down the baseline. So the planning phase means you have to decide, what are you doing? Are the grant giving agencies, are they interested in yes and no answers in terms of answering questions? Or are they interested in answering working hypotheses? I hope you understand that there's a difference. So you have to, when the grant offering is coming, you have to read this very carefully, and you have to understand what part these guys are interested to get. Yeah? Is it applied research or is it basic research? And if you have identified this, what you then can do, you can do this, what I call shifting down the baseline. So you can you can now trim your research proposal. If it is applied research, you can write into the proposal some interesting aspects that more belong into the basic research area. You can, if you have, for example, an agency that is interested in basic research, you write, of course, your proposal, what working hypothesis you want to answer. But in your proposal, you will already write in some interesting parts that the agency later perhaps can use to answer yes and no answers. You understand? So the publication at the end of the day is here on this side. The data you will use is on that side. This side is the applied research area. So this is for earning the money, for writing a report. And this is for the scientific publication. So this yes and no thing, I wouldn't use for writing a paper, you understand? It's still somehow the same process. But while you are doing your research, you already distinguish between that, what you are only doing to earn the money, and what you are doing for your own reputation, to discuss it with the scientific community. And therefore, here you will have another outcome. You will have the working hypothesis, you will have new data, new methodologies. This is a scientific outlet. And not here. This is a report. But don't go into the report and now start to collect the data from the report and publish it. You understand? You have to you have to do it before that. When you are writing a research proposal, you already must know what is the interesting scientific part and what is only to get the budget to do the activity. Okay, so therefore we have to stop here because it's now 1 hour. I have to leave now. But I hope this gives you a bit of kind of the concept. I hope you understand what I want to explain you in this lecture series. And I hope it shows you also that a good planning allows you to play more and much faster within the framework of being a scientist. Do you have any questions to this, what I told you now? Is it clear? Is it something what you expected from me?
Yes,
Yes.
very clear, I think.
Yeah? And
New perspective for us, this one.
yes, is it a new
About
perspective?
about
Basic research and applied
research.
and also about writing a research proposal, because usually we only focus in a basic research or only in applied research, not mix them.
Well, it's very
Yes,
important.
Harry.
This is very important here.
Yes, Harry. May I ask you some questions?
Yes.
Yeah. Harry, being
Yes.
honest that we are probably, if I can say, somebody in Indonesian scientific communities. But unfortunately, in international scientific communities, we are nobody.
Yes.
Yeah. And even for writing some scientific paper, for example, the editor always asking who you are. We have already explained, but later, before going to the reviewer, they have already said that your data is not enough, or please correct some data or something like that.
Yes.
And
yes, exactly.
More important thing is that when we are writing an international proposal, I think it is more difficult because we are nobody.
No, it's not about the nobody. It's not about the nobody.
Yeah,
please do not say that.
That is my question. Based on your experience, when you were a fresh graduate from PhD level, what did you do to be known by the scientific community?
Okay.
So everybody can recognize your work because you are new, freshly graduate, something like that.
Yes.
And I can say that some of us here probably at the same situation like what you were before. Thank you, Harry.
Yes. Well, of course, you see, everybody of us was at that stage. Everybody. And it's very difficult indeed. It's very difficult with your first papers to come over this edge, you know. So to get a first and a second and a third paper in a good journal, it is very, very difficult. The point is, this has nothing to do to be nobody. The problem is in this peer review world, actually, it is still a kind, you have to understand, it's a kind of, it's also power, you know, an editor and a journal. They decide what to publish, and they also decide who can read what, in which year and in which time. So the point is, it all depends on the quality of your data set. So you have, right, and that's what I try to tell you here. The publication starts earlier. It starts not when you are finishing with your PhD or when you are finishing with your research. Now, reset, we call it in Indonesia, yeah, with the reset activity. This is not the point when your publication starts. The publication already starts earlier. You must know what is around in the international literature, what is the methodologies the people are using, and what kind of data these people require to publish. You understand? The problem always comes if you don't do this in this way. So when I write a research proposal, because you see a lot of my budget, I have here a budget, I don't know, €1 million a year, something like that here for my group. But this budget is not only from basic research. I get it from agencies that are sponsoring applied research. But when I am applying, you know, inside these proposals already, I set in data sets that I know that with this methodology, if I get data out of this, I can later publish it. You understand? And the agency is only paying the activity and the materials and all this and the stuff. So I don't look so much about that what I really only want and what they want. I directly, when I'm writing a proposal, I'm already looking what the scientific community needs. You understand? It's a different perspective. And this has nothing to do with being nobody. The problem, I am also referee. So the problem with Indonesian articles is that the density of the data and the comprehensiveness of the how the working hypotheses have been treated, you know, to answer the working hypothesis, that this is sometimes not comprehensive enough. You understand? And this has to do more with your how you utilize the funds and how your funding agencies give you the money to do something. Yeah, but it's not about to be nobody. This is not the point.
May I interrupt you, Harry?
Yes.
Yes. In normal situation, as you mentioned before, that for your group, for example, you have already got million euro to do your own research with your team. And can you imagine, or have you ever heard how much we get normally in Indonesia to do our research? And for that, most of the budget spent for the chemical, which is very expensive in Indonesia because of so many taxes, something like that.
I know.
And I agreed to the German government when I was there before, that the government can exclude the tax, for example, if the chemicals used for research purpose only. And this is our problem also, because the very limited budget.
Yes.
To me, this is quite impossible to get comprehensive data.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I understand. I understand your problem. I have been in Indonesia for many, many years, and I also applied for research projects from IPB on the IPB side to get Indonesian grants and funds. So I exactly understand what you are talking about. But the problem is still, you see, you cannot change the scientific world. That is the point. You cannot change this part of the world. So, but what you can do is, for example, you can collaborate. You use you use collaborators. You while you are writing for research proposals, you are looking for collaborators and ask them, look, if I get funds to do this and that, could you do something like that? And will you have funds to give us for chemicals? It's a kind of organization from your side. Yeah, you are working under high budget constraints. I know this very well. But on the other hand, you are sitting on a huge amount of data and possibilities. So it's not really to say, well, it's too difficult to get the chemicals. You can also collaborate among universities or between universities. And especially, I know in Indonesia, a big problem is always the struggle for funds and the competition between the universities and also the governmental institutions. So you don't really trust each other, right? But it's important that if you have a colleague in another institution who is working in a similar topic like you are working, it is important for you to collaborate with this person, to share data and to ask for resource sharing, you know, because at the end of the day, you have to orientate your activities according to the needs of the scientific community. And it's not to be about nobody. And that's what you have to really understand. It's about the density and the comprehensiveness of the data. And there are different, and the research proposal opens you possibilities to consider this. But if you do not consider this, you know, you will get data only here in the applied research side, and then you want to use these data to publish a paper here. This will not work. You will get it rejected. Yeah. So we will talk about this a bit later next time. Sorry, I have to go now. And I hope this helps you a little bit. Perhaps you can give me a comment at the end of the day whether this is what you are expecting in this series, whether I can help you in this way. It would be nice if you write me an email, and then we already have a date next week. Yeah, okay. But sorry, I really have to go now because I have another meeting.
Thank you very much, Professor Harry.
Yeah, thank you very much. And we then meet perhaps next week.
Thank you, Prof. Harry.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Tschüss.
Tschüss.
Baik, Bapak Ibu, kita ketemu lagi minggu depan, hari dan jam yang sama ya. Dan minggu depan sudah di slot waktu 1,5 jam. Jika ada pertanyaan bisa langsung di email ke beliau terkait lecture hari ini ya. Mungkin Pak Agus bisa share emailnya atau sudah ada email yang di-share?
Belum. Nanti
belum ada ya. Nanti di-share di grup ya.
Ya.
Terima kasih banyak Bapak Ibu.
Saya tulis saja di sini sementara mungkin.
Boleh.
To everyone ya.
Ya.
Hari.
Ngopi.
Terima kasih Bapak Ibu yang berpartisipasi.
Terima kasih juga
menjawab
Pak
dan
Romi.
bertanya luar biasa. Pak Seri sampai 2 jawabannya malah itu kan.
Pertanyaannya.
Oh.
Tapi bagus Pak materinya.
Ya bagus. Kita jadi
ada yang menohok tadi Pak.
Pekerjaan saintis itu ya.
Ada yang menohok tadi. You don't really trust each other katanya. Ya Pak.
Scientific community harus terlibat kita.
We cannot see the reality. We can only approach the reality in nature by research methodology. That's my point today. Thank you. Pamit ya.
Baik, terima kasih. Kita tutup ya. Selamat sore. Terima Pak Dekan. Sampai akhir.
Prof. Agus, mungkin bisa di-share ininya di grup grup AI-nya ini loh.
Rekamannya ya, emailnya ya.
Emailnya. Kalau di sini kan hilang nanti kita tutup.
Ya.
Oke, matur nuwun.
Oke, matur nuwun Mas Ari. Sarannya.
Mas Prof. Terima kasih Mas Romi.
Saya tutup. Selamat sore.
Terima kasih.
Di situ tuh. Sama susah. Siapa? Yang emailnya.
Udah di situ aja. Ini Pak Dekan.
Sampai ketemu minggu depan nggih Bapak Ibu, matur suwun atas kehadirannya.
Really good lecture. Tidak ngantuk.
Terima kasih.
Gimana?
Terima kasih Bapak Ibu atas kehadirannya. Kami dari tim panitia mohon maaf atas segala kurang dan lebihnya. Kami mohon izin untuk menutup ruang virtual. Sampai ketemu lagi
Oke.
minggu depan. Terima kasih.
Ya,
kasih.
kasih.